Rev up your engines!
The Germans are at it yet again. BMW is cheating with their sales, and the Security and Exchange Commission of the United States is investigating them. It's called sales punching. They're doing things like they're having cars that are their demo cars, and they're claiming that they're sold when they're not. They're demo cars. Cars that they are giving to the consumers to drive while theirs are being fixed under warranty. They're counting those as sold when they're not. BMW, of course, doesn't make any comments on it, but here we go. The Germans are cheating again. It's bad enough they got caught with the diesel scandal. BMW got caught. Volkswagen got caught. But now they're trying to artificially inflate their sales, so it looks like they're selling more cars than they actually are. There are rules for these things, and the Germans are trying to bend them here and there to look like they're selling more BMWs than they actually are. This is known as punching, when they boost the sales by them buying cars for use as temporary replacements for customers driving them while their cars are getting fixed, but saying that these cars have been sold, trying to hide the actual inventory that they have on hand, saying that, well, no, those aren't cars we have that we haven't sold. Those cars are already sold. And, you know, like everything else these days, statistics, you know, a lot of it is total nonsense. Statistics, and then there's lies. And there's not much difference between them just by altering a little here, a little there. The statistics make big lies look like big truths. So shame on the Germans for trying to cheat even there. The merger of Ford and Mexico, hey, it's still not working all that well, but Ford had to recall 600,000 cars because the brake system may not work right. Well, these cars were made, you guessed it, in Mexico. And it turns out that there's a valve that normally is closed, but sometimes it gets stuck open on the braking system. So when you step on the brakes, instead of it being closed, it's open and the fluid goes flowing through and the brakes don't work right. Now this affects from 2006 to 2010 models like the Fusion, the Lincoln Mark Z. If you're at all worried, maybe you moved, they don't have your address, or you're the third owner of the car, realize recalls go forever. Get your VIN number. Go to the National Highway Traffic and Safety Association.gov website in the United States. Put in your VIN number, and if it's recalled, this is when you definitely want to take it in to get it done. You don't want the brakes failing because they made the things poorly in Mexico, which is another reason I tell people, hey, not such a great idea to buy a car that was built in Mexico. Their quality control, Chrysler and their Neons, the PT Cruisers all made in Mexico. Those are garbage cars. GM, they got their problem with Mexican-built stuff too. I had one a couple months ago. Guy was complaining that his rear end was making too much noise in his big GM pickup truck. And I told him, I said, well, here, and I showed him an article that I just read. Turns out that they built the rear ends in Mexico, the differential, and they didn't build them to the right tolerances. They actually made them too loose. So when they're too loose, the parts have too much play and they wear out and make a humming noise. Now, a lot of people have GMs with humming noises in the back because they didn't build the differentials in Mexico right. So if you see something that's made in Mexico, say adios. King is good said, Scotty, how useless would it be for manufacturers to produce high quality parts, but since the cars nowadays are all run by computers that are going to fall apart, it wouldn't make any sense, would it? Yeah, you got a good point there, you know. I mean, they are making a lot of stuff cheaper all the way around. The real bane in the future of modern day cars is going to be that computerized and plastic computerized stuff with plastic sensors and plastic this and that the computers run. A guy told me the other day when I was showing him off a brand new car, and he said, look at that, it's all plastic and computer run. I said, yeah, I agree. He had a classic, he had an old Lincoln from the 60s where everything was mechanical in it, and it still worked pretty good because it was a pretty mechanically designed vehicle. Solid steel, metal parts, and he said, look at the modern one you're driving. What's it going to be like when it's 10, 15 years old? And I said, yeah, you know, you got a point. Because all this plastic stuff's going to crack. The electronic stuff's going to break down. And then most people are just going to get rid of it because it's too complex to fix. And that is true with modern cars. I mean, they're not making them that you're going to be driving them 20, 30 years down the line. That's for sure. With all the computer controls and plastic parts that are going to break and crack. So, yeah, unfortunately, you know, the collector's items of the future, I don't think that many people are going to be collecting cars anymore. The way they're building them, they're going to kind of self-destruct before they become old enough to be collectible cars. Last bridge says, Scotty, my Honda Fit 2002 CVT's D indicator blinking while I'm driving a couple of minutes. What's going on? When the D blinks, that just tells you that there's a transmission trouble code stored in a computer. When you have a problem in a transmission system, the D light will blink. Now, you're going to have to take it to a mechanic with a good scan tool to scan it because it has a transmission trouble code that's stored. You get that code, then any mechanic is going to explain to you what that particular code means. If you can't get a good explanation, get it, and then email me the code, and I'll explain it to you. Hundreds of different codes, so you can't just guess. That's why it blinks. So you got to see what it is. You want to pray it's something simple, like sometimes it's a bad speed sensor, it's a problem with a solenoid. You want to hope that it's not a problem like a code that says incorrect gear ratio, because in most vehicles these days, when you get the code for incorrect gear ratio, that means that the internals of the transmission are go out and you need a full overhaul on an automatic transmission. And those things are expensive, especially those CVT ones. A lot of guys don't know how to work on them. The parts are generally only available through the original equipment manufacturer, and so not only do the parts cost a fortune, but they're complicated to fix. So a lot of people end up junking cars when they get a little older with a bad CVT. If they got to spend $6 to $8 grand to fix them, a lot of times they just dump the car instead. But get it scanned. See what the trouble code is first. Captain Cava says, Scotty, why are all old American cars were so soft and comfortable, but even most expensive cars today are not like those? When I was a kid, everybody used to joke, here we come in our sofa car, because they had the big bench split seats, right? They were like sitting on a sofa. And the cars were humongous with giant wheelbases, and the bigger the wheelbase, generally the cushier the ride. That's why one of the reasons small cars really don't ride comfortably is because they have a really small wheelbase, and if it's really small, you're just going to feel the bumps more. It's only common sense plus the weight factor. You had a big old American car that weighed like 2 tons practically. All that weight going on the road is going to counteract a lot of problems on the road because it's heavy. Modern cars are lighter. You're going to feel stuff more. They had more steel. They could take bumps better and hold stability, where now there's a lot more plastic. Plastic doesn't ride as good as steel does. And people really aren't happy with the old American. We called them boats because we'd say, you're not driving that Cadillac, steering it like a boat. You're actually boating. It's not that tight cornering, where today people have a tendency of liking cars that corner better, stiffer, a little stiffer suspension so you can go fast and they stop better. So it's completely different mindset than the old floating couches of yesteryear that I grew up with when I was a kid. Well, Jim says, can a maintenance-free battery explode and is a pulse charger safe? Okay, any battery can theoretically explode. The reason they explode is because they're not venting correctly and they build up too much pressure, and when a spark goes, boom. The maintenance-free batteries have a smaller vent than the ones that you can add water to. It's a different design. They still have to vent. If they don't vent, they will all explode. So it's just that they have a smaller vent. So they evaporate the battery acid over a longer period of time. They will always eventually run out, and then you got to buy another battery. The reason they went to maintenance-free was because they found Americans were lazy, they never checked the water, so you were better off having a maintenance-free battery that evaporated the fluid slower than one you can add water to that would evaporate faster. Because if you don't add any water, the maintenance-free one will last longer. But if you have a maintenance one, and you put distilled water in it every once in a while when it gets low, it'll outlast the maintenance-free one. Even a maintenance-free one can blow up if that vent gets clogged up. It's not a common thing, but it can happen. Now, pulse charging is safe on any vehicle as long as you got the vents are working. Some guys do it to keep the plates from sulfating, and from what I've read scientifically, it can help somewhat. But any vehicle can explode if the vents get clogged, but it's a very rare occurrence. I've been a mechanic for 52 years. I've only ever seen one battery explode, and it wasn't me. It was in the guy in the bay next to mine who was a smoker. And it was in the winter inside, and yeah, it blew up. Now, I work outside in the driveway, so it's never going to happen to me because I got a big fan that's blowing everything away, and the hydrogen can't build up. It just blows away, so I don't have to worry about it. I work outside. But if you work inside, yeah, you can have a problem with it, especially in cold areas. If it's really cold, frozen battery, yeah, you want it to thaw out. If you give it a big jump and it's frozen, things can blow up. But here it doesn't freeze, and I work outside, so all the vapors blow away. I don't have to worry about it. Jay Woe says, I got an 04 F-150. Bought it since almost new. Hurricane Irma in Florida hit, and now the battery drains, and no one can figure out what's wrong. I put one of those battery cutoffs on it, so I take it off and switch the power off when I shut it off for any length of time. Hell, you got something draining it, and you said it was after the hurricane. I'm assuming that you were probably close to the shore or something and salt water got in, and that can destroy electronics. But regardless, I've got a video how to fix electrical shorts on your car. You'll be able to find out where all the drains are coming from using a meter like that. And as you pull the fuses out, when the meter drops a bunch, you know that that is one of the big drains, and you would check that area to see where the short is. And I've done that for customers' cars here in Houston that were flooded out. Say it's in the overhead lights. And they said, I don't even care if I have overhead lights. So I just take the fuse out and leave it out. They don't have overhead lights anymore, but they don't have a drain. So you'll want to watch that video, pull the fuses out one at a time, find where the drain is, and either fix it or just leave without that thing working. If you don't care what doesn't work anymore, say it's to your radio. You know, you could just take the radio out and run a new power wire from the radio to the battery and bypass all the other wiring. And then if it stops shorting out, you don't have to worry about fixing the wiring. You can just bypass it. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.